Welcome back, everyone. We're going to be entering the public comment portion of our meeting. Next slide. We received 162 written comments, which came from 126 individuals and families, 7 clinicians and researchers, and 13 organizations. We have sent them in advance to every single one of the council members who read them in advance of this meeting. We did want to summarize some of the themes that we saw. Understandably, there was a sense of urgency and accountability in many of the comments. We had feedback from individuals with young onset and atypical Parkinsonisms, and the need for equal prioritization in the national plan. Focus on research, treatment interventions, and whole person care. Diagnostic delays and access to specialized care, financial and caregiver burden on patients and families, and the environmental, genetic, and veteran-specific risk factors. I think it's interesting that these comments also touch on many of the topics we talked about earlier today and in our different meetings. We're going to be entering the public comment section soon. Public comments were also the oral public comment section soon. We have a subset that we're going to be called out today. The oral public comments were also included in this document. Next slide. Public comment really is one of the central parts of a FACA meeting. It is designed to allow us to get more input from the public and ensure transparency, and that individuals have an opportunity to inform deliberations. The public comment instructions were posted in the Federal Register notice for the announcement of this meeting. Everyone was allowed to submit a written public comment, and we also had the opportunity for individuals to provide an oral comment based on the time that we have available. Comments are received for the meeting record. So just to be clear, this isn't a time for question and answer, response, deliberation. We're going to hear their comments and then thank them and move on to the next commenter. It's really a point for public interest. I'm going to encourage all of the council members to come on camera as we take down the slides. And our Mathematica team will be helping, and Sarah will be helping coordinate this process, as well as individuals entering the meeting and then leaving. Please be aware that they will have access to the chat. So Caitlin, if we can allow the first person to enter, or maybe that's already happened.
I'm here.
Wonderful. Allie, please.
Hi, I'm Allie Signorelli, and I'm grateful to be able to share some comments with you today. First, congratulations on your appointment, and we are grateful for your service. My journey with Parkinson's began 8 years ago this summer. I was a 43-year-old working mom, ironically at the time as a fundraiser for Us Against Alzheimer's, a key player in the passive and the implementation of the first Alzheimer's plan. I was heavily involved in the passing of the NPP because I know how incredibly important it is. And I had slightly different letter planned for you today about that experience, but I wanted to share a little different story with you about what this disease is actually doing to me and to my family in real time. Last week, while I was on vacation in Los Angeles, I spent 2 nights in 2 different ERs due to an acute attack of very serious Parkinson's symptoms. I'm going to try not to cry. My children watched helplessly as I gasped for air, relaying in real-time updates to my husband, who was on a plane 4 hours away, while a doctor and a friend helped me to try and calm down my breathing so I could catch my breath. Over the course of the last week, I spent the night in 2 different ERs, one regional and one attached to a world-renowned university system. Neither one was prepared to help me, a Parkinson's patient in crisis. When I was diagnosed, I was told that having Parkinson's as a woman my age was exceptionally rare. What I've learned since is that could not be farther from the truth. I share my journey online, and my post about my experience last week has more than 500,000 views and 1,200 comments, made mostly by people who could relate to what I was going through, either themselves or as caregivers or family members. I share this not as a point of pride, but as proof of how many of us are truly suffering in this community. As you can tell, I am still dealing with the effects of what happened, but I got myself in bed to be here with you guys today because I need you to hear directly from the community how much we are suffering. And so my ask for you is this: act boldly. I've heard a lot today about pragmatism and being careful and cautious, not over-promising and under-delivering on results. And I say this from my heart: no one in this community is going to hold you to account for acting too boldly or for swinging for the offenses. We need help now. We need investment in research at levels that we have not seen in this disease. We need expanded care. We need more movement disorder neurologists available to us. We need patient and provider systems like the ERs I visited last week. We need earlier diagnosis. Mine took 4 years to be diagnosed. And we need to ensure that patients like me, our care partners, and our families are getting the help that we need when we need it. So I ask you to do this. Act with urgency. We have already lost 2 years in the time since this plan was first signed into law. While you are meeting here today, some other mom is sitting at her daughter's soccer game with a weird twitch in her ankle that eventually will be named as Parkinson's, and her life is about to change in incredibly difficult ways. How can we do on this council act will help determine the rest of her life and the rest of mine? No one here is worried about you being too bold or too urgent. So please swing for the fences. The creation of the plan is just the first step. I know this from my firsthand experience. Getting it funded and implemented will take years of hard work. So work quickly with urgency on behalf of me, my family, my children, and the millions of people who are suffering with Parkinson's. Thank you for your time and your service on this committee.
Thank you for sharing your comment and story. Our next commenter will be Lori Barr. Welcome, Lori. When you're able, turn on your camera and please provide your comment.
Can you see me and hear me?
We can.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Lori Barr, and I'd like to share my mom's journey with progressive supranuclear palsy. Her health decline began in 2018 and quickly became like a relentless game of whack-a-mole of symptoms. By 2019, I had left my job as a hospital executive to care for her because I was struggling to juggle everything. In early 2020, we moved her in with my family, and later that year into assisted living. As her condition worsened with repeated falls, cognitive decline, a dementia diagnosis, pneumonia, bladder problems, vision changes, muscle cramps, and swallowing difficulties, we were sent from one specialist to another searching for solutions. Every new symptom meant another referral, another specialist, and another round of appointments. In 2020 alone, I took her to 81 medical appointments, and that doesn't count those that others took her to or any of the hospitalizations that she had. Even me, someone who had spent my entire career working in hospitals and medical groups, felt overwhelmed by managing it all. It was heartbreaking to watch my once independent, vibrant, and optimistic mother gradually lose her judgment, executive functioning, and cognitive abilities. As the disease progressed, she also lost her mobility, first relying on a walker and eventually a wheelchair. In early 2023, she was finally diagnosed with PSP by a movement disorder specialist. It's a disease we had never heard of, and suddenly all of her symptoms started to make some sense. By the end of that year, Mom had a catheter and was wheelchair and oxygen dependent. She passed away in March 2024, and her PSP diagnosis was confirmed by a postmortem autopsy following brain donation. As her care partner, I felt isolated and ill-informed. There's so little information about PSP and atypical Parkinsonisms. Being bounced from specialist to specialist was time-consuming and frustrating. We were lucky that Mom had great insurance, or it would have also been extraordinarily expensive. Last month, I volunteered for 3 days in the Family and Care Partner classroom at the World Parkinson's Congress in Phoenix. It was an honor to support fellow care partners and connect with the nearly 4,000 attendees, including clinicians, researchers, people living with Parkinson's, and their families. As I walked through the convention center, I couldn't help but wonder how many attendees diagnosed with Parkinson's actually have PSP, CBD, or MSA. I understand that an estimated 10 to 20% of people with these conditions are initially misdiagnosed with Parkinson's disease. There's an urgent need for greater disease awareness, better education for neurologists, patients, and the public to improve recognition of these rare diseases. We need more research funding to develop treatments that can slow disease progression, and we need stronger support to include respite resources for care partners. I urge you to include these items in your plan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Our next commenter is Lori Rice.
Hello, my name is Lori Rice, and I'm here to share my personal experiences with Parkinson's disease and why this mission is so important to me. As we all know, 2020 was an incredibly challenging year for most, and for me it was profoundly more difficult because of the deaths of both of my brother and my father from Parkinson's just 4 months apart. This disease has hit my family with gale force winds, and as I have also tested positive for one of the genetic markers for Parkinson's, only time will tell how our story truly ends. I am actively participating in the Parkinson's Progression Markers Initiative Research Study, or as it's more commonly known, PPMI, as my genetic risk will help science researching future potential clinical trials to aid in the detection, symptom management, and ultimately a cure. The biomarker discovery is a direct result of this very important research, but there is so much more to do. My father was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2015, and he passed away just 5 years after his diagnosis in March of 2020. And in 2017, at the age of 57, my brother, a vibrant, healthy internal medicine physician and professor of medicine at Medical University of South Carolina, was diagnosed with an atypical form of Parkinson's. Atypical, I soon realized, was really a euphemism for record-breaking speed of symptom progression and decline. I watched as his body failed him, his balance so affected he risked falling with every movement. He had to abruptly leave the practice of medicine as his symptoms would not allow for the continuation of care for his beloved patients. He was moved into a skilled nursing facility where he remained until his death in July of 2020. In-home caregiving became too cost prohibitive, and I struggled with traveling back and forth from Oregon, where I live, to South Carolina many times, especially during the beginning of the pandemic. My brother was robbed of at least 25 additional years of life by this disease, years that he would have continued as a practicing physician, researcher, educator, and healer, his life's true purpose. The world is a significantly different place without him and without his contributions. There are currently 1 million people in the United States living with Parkinson's, and as you know, this number is predicted to rise to 1.6 million by 2037. My hope is that with the help of this committee, we can support additional investments in Parkinson's research for patients as well as for caregiving families dealing with this devastating disease, a disease that will only increase in number with our aging population. I thank you so much for giving me this time today to tell my story and to advocate for Parkinson's patients and families across the country. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Our next commenter is Colin Gibney.
Thank you. Thank you, council members. My name's Colin Gibney. I truly hope that in sharing my story with you, I might be among the last to have to tell a story like this. My wife, Dr. Mary Davis Gibney, passed away from corticobasal degeneration January 30th, 2026 at age 60. She had been misdiagnosed with PSP less than 2 years prior. Her brain autopsy showed unequivocally that she had CBD, and the misdiagnosis had dire ramifications. Mary died when she had breathing difficulties during sleep, breathing problems more typical of CBD than PSP. If we had been given a CBD diagnosis while she was still alive, I would have been more focused on monitoring her breathing. And if this were the case, she still might be with me today. She had none of the known biomarkers for PSP or CBD. Her disease came on completely unexpectedly. She was a force, mentally and physically, a beloved physician, a marathoner, and a quick wit. Her rapid decline and loss is still shocking to all who knew her. In the first few months, as speech and balance symptoms shifted into high gear, it became clear the usual medical venues would be insufficient. We connected with organizations like Cure PSP and the AFTD, and we ourselves located clinical trials on the NIH website. In retrospect, the many trips to UPenn and MGH in Boston for the trials only provided us with short-lived and false hope. Experimental treatments, while much further along than in the past, still offered no match for the disease's unrelenting progression. I also want to note how much support care partners need in order to care for their loved ones. I left my job, suffered from daily isolation and anxiety, and found the only consistent support was that provided by non-governmental organizations like Cure PSP and AFTD. Mary's progression was even more rapid than average, and her loss of function measured in weeks and months, not years. But the treatment path remained unchanged because there are no treatments or cures. Carbidopa-levodopa provides little, if any, relief, but that was all she was offered, aside from a host of supplements and so-called brain health remedies that do not slow or reverse PSP or CBD. Families need to be better warned of such false claims. Mary died a shadow of her former self, unable to feed or clean herself, unable to speak her thoughts, unable to just stand or even breathe. I never even got to arrange respite or skilled nursing. She died at home in January, just 2 years, not the usual 5 to 7 after her original PSP misdiagnosis. No family anywhere in the world should have to face a situation like this, but especially not in the United States today. One of the rays of hope is the Healthy Brains Act, HR 7779, and I fully expect you're familiar with this act and how it will help establish coordinated centers for research, as well as dissemination of information and resources. I hope you're able to rally support for this vital piece of legislation. I thank you for your time and enthusiastically offer you my ongoing support should you need it. Godspeed.
Thank you for your public comment. Our next commenter is Atrik Patel.
Hello, everyone. My name is Atrik Patel. Thank you for the chance to provide a public comment to the Parkinson's Advisory Council. One of the greatest gifts of my life has been the opportunity to grow up alongside my grandfather, whom we lovingly called Dada. Dada has always embodied the virtue of selflessness. As the son of farmers, he became the first in his family to pursue higher education, training as a civil engineer in India. He used that education to improve his community, helping to build infrastructure in his village that would create greater opportunities for future generations. His commitment to service ultimately led him to the United States, where he encouraged his children to similarly strive to build a new life of promise and purpose. Through Dada's example, I learned from an early age the importance of dedicating oneself to the betterment of others. It is this principle that has defined my personal and professional ambitions and continues to guide me now as a medical student. The irony is therefore not lost on me that it was only shortly after my acceptance to medical school that he was diagnosed with progressive supranuclear palsy, or PSP. In the years since, I've come to know PSP as relentless in nature. It has become rare for Dada to finish a meal without uncontrollably coughing, as the disease impairs his ability to swallow. Every unexpected noise in the home causes concern for Dada's family, as we have subconsciously come to associate it with a potentially serious fall caused by his gaze palsy and retropulsion. Equally heartbreaking are the cognitive and behavioral changes that have accompanied his illness, including slower processing, increased impulsivity, and growing apathy. As his family, we've struggled to understand why someone who spent his entire life uplifting others is now confronting a neurodegenerative condition that steadily erodes his independence and connection to the world around him. Yet, our experience is not unique. Families across the country are grappling with this very same reality, often navigating a disease that remains poorly understood, with limited access to support and few therapeutic options, and virtually no prospect of a cure. Accordingly, while PSP is considered a rare disease, its impact on patients and families is unmistakable. Therefore, as both a grandson and a future physician, I respectfully urge this advisory council to advance efforts to raise awareness of PSP, expand support for affected patients and caregivers, and increase investment and research aimed at developing effective treatments and ultimately a cure. Dada spent his life building a better future for others. I hope this council will help to build one for him and for the many others facing PSP across the country. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Our next commenter is Stacey Foxwell.
Good afternoon, members of the Advisory Council. My name is Stacey Foxwell. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease at the age of 49. 2 years later, Lewy body dementia was added to my diagnosis. I am the very first female in my family to be diagnosed with young onset Parkinson's and Lewy body dementia. My doctors have advised me not to work due to worsening cognitive decline, mobility issues, and non-motor symptoms. Despite this, I continue to provide a shared living environment for my daughter, who is 28 years old and intellectually disabled. She requires round-the-clock care. I am a paid caregiver on the Medicaid waiver for her. My physical and mental challenges are compounded by crushing financial strain. I participate and speak out through the Parkinson's Voice Project and research studies to help offset our expenses. However, we are rapidly depleting our savings and facing being forced to go onto public assistance. The cruel reality is that nearly every financial safety net and resource for Parkinson's is designed for people 65 and older, and many require home ownership. I have 13 years until I would qualify under typical age-based criteria. I was denied SSDI because of the long delay between when I could no longer work and when I was diagnosed. That took over a decade. I rely on my friends to take care of me, as the waiver for the state of Nevada, the Medicaid waiver for the state of Nevada is now sitting at 2 to 3 years. My husband would need to earn a living wage as my full-time caregiver for us to stay as a family. Tragically, we cannot afford to buy a home in today's market. And as renters, we cannot make the modifications needed for my safety. Without proper ADA accommodations, I will have no choice but to be placed in a nursing home torn from my family. Young onset Parkinson's is creating a silent crisis. Based on my lived experience, I am urging this council to focus with utmost urgency to institute policies that streamline disability benefits for Parkinson's, with eligibility based on medical and financial need and available within 30 days of filing, regardless of age. Prioritize paid family caregiving services that pay a living wage based on the average state income. Facilitate programs that help families obtain ADA accessible housing and lower the out-of-pocket costs for medical care, protecting families from financial ruin while caring for loved ones at any age. Target focus on reducing the time from first symptoms for young onset Parkinson's diagnosis, and address the unique needs of the services that are required for someone of young age. I also would like to mention that in order for me to continue the way I am going to have to rely more and more on services from nonprofit organizations and from friends and family. I thank you for listening to my story today. Please do not let families like mine be forced into impossible choices simply because we were diagnosed young. Now is the time to close these gaps so that no one has to face this disease alone.
Thank you for your public comment. Our next commenter is Joe Rhodes. Joseph, are you able to come off mute?
I'm
Hello?
admitting the next person. Oh,
Hi.
never mind.
Joseph, we can hear you now. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. My name is Joe Rhodes. I'm from Taylor, South Carolina. Thank you for holding this council today. I want to explain that at the peak of being considered for advancement and promotion with the law enforcement agency that I used to work with, I was proud of what I was doing. I was a great dad and an attentive husband. In 2013, as I was walking up the steps to my office, my mind was saying, go forward. My left leg was saying, no, we'll do whatever we want. I froze in place and I didn't know what to do. I sort of went into a little bit of a panic and I wasn't moving. So that was the beginning, and here I am 13 years later. If you ask me a question, you might have to wait for a verbal response because my head shakes up and down, left and right. So you'd have to wait for a response, whether it's a real yes or no. Like I said, I was in law enforcement. Part of my job was to be a protector. not just of my family, but of the public. And when Parkinson's took me away from it, that was very devastating to me. I felt less as a man, less as a husband, a provider. And unfortunately, it pushed me into early retirement because my agency said Parkinson's was a liability. Now, I have tried Azilect, Requip, Abadopa, Levodopa, and other medications. The unfortunate part is I only sleep about 3 hours a day. I use a BiPAP machine. I'm constantly exhausted. And as much as my doctor may want me to exercise and vigorous activity, I find often I'd rather take a nap. So I run out of energy. I'm discouraged. And often I have thoughts and visions of maybe I'm more of a burden on my family and, allowing my family to move on with their life. My Parkinson's, I have to ask whether or not it came from breathing in the dust because I was a first responder and I did help with the cleanup at Ground Zero at 9/11. I used to own a plumbing and heating company, and we had to deal with also pancake boilers and asbestos, along with going to a lot of nurseries that had pesticides. My mother today, ironically, marks the second anniversary of her passing. She passed from complications of Parkinson's. I've completed several trials. I hope to be involved in more. I would like to try stem cell surgery, but the DBS, I'm not a big fan of. Seems a little invasive. But I think stem cell might be a little bit more expensive, and I don't know of any trials out there. I'd like to say that, maybe my life has changed on so many levels. Maybe it's a gift in a sense. And, with such people as Mike, we value his enthusiasm and all the work that he's been doing. I just kind of wish that we could put a stop to Parkinson's, or at least leave it at the point of where I am and other people are. If not, reverse it. So I appreciate your time, and I thank you so much to this council for giving me this opportunity to speak today. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story and your public comment.
Thank you.
Our next commenter is Lucretia Pintacuda.
Hello, I'm Lucretia Pintacuda, and I'm a retired healthcare provider and was officially diagnosed with Parkinson's disease 9 years ago at the age of 61. Even before my diagnosis, I learned that vigorous exercise is the only, so far, proven way to slow the progression of Parkinson's disease. Determined to preserve my mobility and quality of life, I made exercise a regular part of my weekly routine. In 2023, at the age of 67 and 11 months, I summited Mount Kilimanjaro. Last November, at age 70, I completed a 3-volcano challenge in Guatemala. Both of these were fundraising efforts for Parkinson's disease research through the Michael J. Fox Foundation. While these were epic accomplishments, I remain high functioning, this does not mean I don't struggle. Many everyday tasks like meal prep, brushing my teeth, changing the sheets, applying makeup, even shaving my legs, and talking, mood control, bladder control, and so much more are challenges for me. I've lost most of my sense of smell, making it impossible to see if the milk has spoiled or if food is burning on the stove. I often have nightmares where I wake up screaming. Anxiety and depression are always lurking in the corners of my mind. Having Parkinson's disease is like having a leech embedded into your skin. It doesn't kill you itself, but it drains the life force from you, weakens you, and its effects can cause life-threatening situations. Balance can be an issue which poses risk for falls, choking, and impaired swallowing through aspiration. Slowed reflexes can be a problem for driving. The list goes on and on. Research is showing that Parkinson's has 3 primary causes. The number 1 cause is exposure to toxins. The second is traumatic brain injury, with the distant third being genetic influence. And I believe I have all 3 of them. The incidence of Parkinson's is skyrocketing, with young onset growing dramatically, and this will make an already heavy monetary burden on our country and individuals with it even greater. Do not go gentle in that dark night, but rage, rage against the dying of the light. Those words were penned by Dylan Thomas to his dying father. Well, I'm raging, and I want to advocate for funding for research, a way to slow down or halt Parkinson's. Better access to healthcare and insurance for those with Parkinson's, especially those who have lost their jobs or cannot afford prescriptions or get health care or health insurance. Bans on toxins that we know cause Parkinson's, like paraquat, TCEs, glyphosates, and others. And we need to bring awareness about the condition that threatens to rob those of us with it of everything we are and want to be. Right now, it promises debility, loss of independence, isolation, and demise. I want that to change, and I'm really anxious and hopeful that this advisory committee is seeking to find ways to make a difference for those of us who have no choice but to live with Parkinson's for the rest of our life. I thank you for giving me this opportunity to express my opinions, and I cheer on this committee.
Thank you for sharing your public comment. Our next commenter is Jim Gayhart.
Thank you. Hey, good afternoon. My name is Jim Gayhart, and I'm a husband and primary caregiver for my wife, Patty, who was diagnosed with progressive supranuclear palsy, or PSP, in October of 2023. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this public comment. I had the opportunity to listen in on parts of today's meeting, which has been very informative. The creation of the Parkinson's Advisory Council is an exciting and important step, bringing together experts with diverse perspectives to develop a coordinated national response to Parkinson's disease and related diseases such as PSP gives families like mine something that we desperately need: hope. Before Patty's diagnosis, I had never even heard of PSP. Hearing those words was devastating. I was diagnosed with cancer in 2018. I remember how much that changed my life, but as frightening as that experience was, it did not compare to hearing that my wife had PSP. Today, a PSP diagnosis is terminal, on average 7 to 8 years life expectancy. There's no treatment that slows or stops the disease, no cure, and the focus of care is managing decline rather than changing the outcome. That reality is incredibly difficult for patients and caregivers alike. Organizations like Cure PSP have been an invaluable source of education, support, and guidance for Patty and me. I'm grateful they have a seat at this table and a voice in these important discussions. Earlier this year, I organized a fundraiser for Cure PSP. My message to donors was simple: join us in giving hope to people living with PSP. I see this advisory council in the same way, as another opportunity to create real hope through meaningful action. After spending 20 years leading a company that served federal agencies, I understand how government works. I also know that progress can sometimes be slowed by bureaucracy or the pursuit of perfection. So my request to this council is simple: move with urgency, set measurable goals, focus on tangible progress. With the challenge of so much to accomplish, look at dividing and conquering, focus on partnerships, including with other countries, and that these are global diseases. Families living with PSP do not have the luxury of unlimited time. I also submitted written comments with additional recommendations. Be honored to help this council in any way I can. And in closing, thank you for your time, for your service, and for your commitment to improving the lives of people living with Parkinson's and related diseases such as PSP. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Our next commenter is Ken Chasen.
My name is Ken Chasen. I'm a person living with Parkinson's and a member of the Parkinson's Foundation's People with Parkinson's Advisory Council. I was diagnosed in 2023 at age 56 after a few years of symptoms, including, among the first, severe anxiety unconnected to any apparent cause, changes in handwriting, and subtle gait changes. A tremor eventually emerged, and at a routine physical exam, I asked if the tremor, might be Parkinson's. My primary care provider thought that was unlikely. When the tremor persisted, I was referred to a movement disorder specialist who saw the complete picture. It was Parkinson's. I began medication as well as specialized physical and occupational therapy. I also added mental health specialists with training and experience and neurodegenerative conditions to my care team. I'm fortunate to live in an area where specialized, comprehensive, and coordinated Parkinson's care is accessible. Unfortunately, this is not the case for many people living with Parkinson's. Access to this kind of care combined with regular exercise has been helpful to me. My symptoms are, for now, generally well managed. Still, Parkinson's is a moving target, and like others, I've experienced challenges. There are good days and there are bad days. I experienced a serious fall last year when the gait issue caught me off guard while I was exercising. Non-motor symptoms like mood fluctuations, periods of fatigue, and others contributed to my decision to retire early from my career in the federal government's senior executive service. As this council begins its work, I respectfully urge you to focus on three priorities. First, maintain firm deadlines and issue the overdue report within a year. Second, identify the resources needed to prevent, diagnose, treat, and ultimately cure Parkinson's. To this end, I support an initial NIH investment of $600 million annually in Parkinson's research, with a goal of increasing federal Parkinson's research funding to $1.5 billion annually by 2032, consistent with the investment growth under the National Alzheimer's Project. Our research investment should encompass disease-modifying therapies, improved diagnostics, environmental and toxic exposures, including those affecting service members. As an Army veteran, this issue is particularly important to me. Third, prioritize access to high-quality multidisciplinary care. Too many people with Parkinson's lack access to movement disorder specialists, mental health professionals with Parkinson's expertise, rehab services, and coordinated care. Expanding access to comprehensive treatment, including care for non-motor symptoms such as anxiety, depression, fatigue, cognitive changes, and sleep disorders, among others, must be a central goal of the national plan. Thank you for your service on the council and for your commitment to improving the lives of people with Parkinson's and the families who support them.
Thank you for your public comment. And again, I want to thank on behalf of our entire council, all of the written and all of the oral public comments we received today. If Mathematica can bring up our last slide. Next slide. Most of these next steps we've already discussed throughout the meeting, but I do want to have one more chance for the council to weigh in. We are already beginning to develop the agenda for the August 24th meeting. It is only about 7 weeks away. Right now, we're considering complementing what we learned today from the federal agencies, inviting a number of nonprofit, non-governmental organizations to share their mission and role in Parkinson and Parkinsonisms. We will be sitting at a poll to our advisory council members to try to get points of contact, interest on which groups we think should present. This will not be the only time this can happen, but we think it would complement what we learned today at this advisory council. We'll also be establishing the subcommittees that we discussed about earlier this week. I've relisted the deadlines that Dr. Dodson mentioned, with the committee indicating their primary and, if they desire, secondary preference in a subcommittee. If they'd be willing to serve as co-chair, the week of the 13th, they would meet with Dr. Adams and myself to talk about their goals and process. Then by August 14th, which is just 10 days before our August 24th council, they'll have held their first committee and begin to plan their work for the rest of the year. We've also developed a Microsoft Teams file sharing site and collaborative platform. As everyone on this call knows, we've had a little bit of technical challenges emailing and getting materials out. We hope once this is established, it will make the process easier, though Microsoft Teams in itself is a little bit challenging to bring people into. So we'll have our IT team here to help work on that. And then to just reiterate the future upcoming meetings, August 24th will be another virtual meeting. We're also then planning to have a meeting on August 9th with the being in person with a virtual component if necessary. And then December 7th with another virtual meeting. The next slide, I will hand it back to Dr. Adams to conclude the meeting.
Thank you so much, Jordan. And I want to thank all of the individuals who submitted public comment, both in writing and verbally today. The fact that you all took the time to share your stories and suggestions with us means a lot. And I want you to know that we take those very much to heart. And I can say from my personal perspective that it's incredibly moving and tragic to hear of the struggles that so many are facing, and our concern and urge to help each and every one of you, I know, motivates everybody participating in the council here today. We absolutely are acting with a sense of urgency, and we will do everything we can to meet the twin needs of being bold and brave, while at the same time making sure that the recommendations that we make drive substantive change now and not just in the future. I want to thank everybody for your incredible participation today. We have covered a huge amount of ground, and I think that we are ready to roll up our sleeves and start digging into the substantive work of putting together a framework for our future recommendations. So we will be looking for your thoughts on a number of fronts. First and foremost, the working groups that you would like to participate in. So again, we ask that you indicate whether you would like to be involved in both, but which is your primary recommendation, and if you are willing to serve in a leadership capacity, we would also love to hear that as well. We would love to hear if there is additional information that we can be collecting for you to help inform your discussions over the next month as we begin to think through the recommendation. And then finally, just to conclude with Jordan's request for input on future agendas, either for the August meeting or looking ahead to the November or December meeting as well. So thank you all, each of you, for just a really extraordinary meeting. Everybody really brought their full selves to this discussion, and I look forward to seeing what we do together to advance Parkinson's research, care, and services. So I think I'll pause for any last comments or questions, and if not, I think that we can conclude, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Okay, thank you all so much, and we will be in touch to continue this work.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.